Welcome to the Intelligence Fabric, a podcast about how intelligence really shows up in multifamily. And if that name gives you pause, that's okay. Stay with me for a minute. This podcast is for multifamily leaders who are trying to make sense of what's changing. And that's a lot right now. More importantly, what actually matters in this moment of change. In an industry that feels noisier and more complex every year, we need a bellwether. There's no shortage of tools or tactics or opinions out there. Every week, no, every day, it seems like there's something new to pay attention to. And yet, even with all that information, clarity, great word, feels harder to come by, not easier. That's what this podcast is really about. It's not another show about software or trends or buzzwords in the industry or optimization tips. It's a conversation about how intelligence actually moves through an organization, how information turns into decisions, and why that process so often breaks down in an industry that's drowning in data. We all have more data than we know what to do with. Every episode, we're going to explore the space between information and action. The invisible layer where context, judgment, and experience either come together or get lost. We're not here to sell answers. I'm not here to tell you what I think or what to think, rather. We're here to ask better questions and to name a shift that's already underway in multifamily. I'm Mike Brewer, and over the last few decades, I've had literally a front row seat to how this industry actually makes decisions. And to understand that shift, it helps to start with what I keep hearing when I talk to multifamily leaders. Most organizations, they don't feel stuck because they lack data. Like we said, we have lots of data. They feel stuck because they can't agree on what the data actually means. Everyone walks into meetings with dashboards, reports, and tools that are supposed to explain what's happening. And yet, the same questions come up again and again and again. Why did performance change? Which numbers should we trust? How many times have you heard that? What caused this outcome? And what decision should we make next? Those aren't data questions. They're meaning questions. If your data produces different conclusions depending on who's looking at it, then intelligence was never the output. Right now, intelligence in multifamily lives in fragments. We all know this. We all probably admit it. Maybe not openly, but we admit it. Operations has one view of reality, marketing has another, revenue tells a different story, customer experience adds more context, and leadership is left trying to make sense of all of it after the fact. We usually call that management, but in practice, it's a lot of manual interpretation. People, leaders in organizations, stitching together partial understanding and hoping the picture holds long enough to make a decision. That approach works when things are small, when portfolios are simpler, when systems are fewer, when decisions don't have to travel very far. But scale changes the rules. As you add more properties or more platforms, more vendors, more people, interpretation doesn't scale. confusion does. We all know that. Every decision starts to depend on who's in the room, what they remember, and how they explain it. What's missing isn't intelligence, effort, or expertise, it's flow. But not just flow of data. For intelligence to actually move across systems, across roles, across time, it can't live as interpretation. It has to live as structure, as judgment that's been encoded once and then reused everywhere. As decisions that don't need to be re-explained every time the context changes. That missing layer is what we call the intelligence fabric. Not as a product, not as another platform, but as a way of thinking about how intelligence should live inside of an organization. Shared, consistent, and reusable. Let's say that again. Shared, consistent, and reusable instead of trapped in individual tools or people's heads. That's the worst case. When intelligence is fragmented, teams end up debating numbers. When intelligence is structured and shared, teams start debating direction. And that's a very different kind of conversation. This podcast is about exploring that shift. Why optimization alone keeps organizations busy, but not aligned. Why AI without context and structure accelerates decisions without improving them. And that's not useful. And why leadership in the next phase of multifamily looks less like managing tools and more like conducting systems that already know how to work together. What a day that will be. If you're an owner, an operator, or a leader trying to make sense of why familiar approaches feel heavier, doesn't everything feel heavier today? Instead of easier, you're in the right place. That's the intelligence fabric. If something here resonates, pay attention. I'll see you next time.